get this road on the show. It's wound bag and rolling, right? Coach Helen for Youth Fit Studio. That's me. My new hair. And we're here. Right. I'm always ready for boot camp ballet. What are you talking about? Boot camp ballet. See, it rhymes. Right. Suffering. Right. Now, it sounds bleak. It's not bleak. It is, however, a behaviour where we tend to get into, where we are in a situation where we're already not feeling great, and for some unknown reason, we decide somewhere, or consciously or unconsciously, to increase our suffering, right? So we're increasing the situation, we're making the situation worse. So it's taking a bad situation and making it worse. Now, some of this does tie into self-soothing, which I did on Wednesday. Time to recall the day of the week. So some is a did cover in self-soothing when it comes to some of our behaviours and habits, and there is a crossover, hence why they're on the same week, funnily enough. But we do tend to take a situation that's already not fantastic and then deepen that situation from an emotional point of view and make it worse, especially when we're already feeling quite low. So if we're feeling quite low about a situation, there is a tendency for us to keep digging, right? So just dig a little bit lower and place ourselves a little bit lower in an emotional hole. So what do? We find ways at some point to increase the suffering that we're in. And partially, yes, this is where it crossovers with self-soothing. I had this problem Wednesday, couldn't get my teeth in. Self-soothing. It does cross over with self-soothing because we use that as a tool, right? Self-soothing becomes a tool to actually increase the suffering. So what does that look like in a practical sense? So I've got some examples. So maybe, let's just say you go out, I don't know, you stay at home, go out, doesn't really matter at this point in time. It's a Saturday night, you eat a little bit more than you planned. Maybe enough for you to create a sense of guilt. Now, there is a tendency, I'm not saying all people do this, a tendency rather than reset a different behaviour emotion, the emotional feeling of guilt will actually result in somebody eating more and then increasing the sense of guilt, and then self-soothing because they're feeling guilty about the behaviour and feel, I'm using the word bad, I'm not saying and judging it is bad, saying they're feeling low about their behaviour, and then to self-soothe that feeling, they will eat some more, or they'll eat something else that makes them usually feel better, or they associate with them feeling better. And it kind of goes into a cycle of guilt, suffering, self-soothing. It just keeps going round and round in a ball of muss. Technical term. Where else might that happen? It might happen in the terms of missing a training session, or this is one that happens a lot. Planning to do a session first thing on a Monday morning, sleeping through the alarm, and then not training for the rest of the week. And in fact, perhaps do a behaviour that's probably not self-soothing in terms to food or alcohol, but may self-soothe with literally binge watching TV, as opposed to going to do the exercise I have planned. So that's a common thing to happen as well. So what happens then? Same situation in terms of behaviours, as in I've done something that creates a sense of failure, if you want, or I'm feeling low, so I'm feeling bad, but I'm going to increase this suffering. I'm going to take the situation I've created, I'm going to increase it with intensity by going into the cycle, by choosing therefore to do more of the same thing, or self-soothe, as I said earlier, with anything that there is, right, to counteract that feeling. What we have to accept, all of us, is that for every action or no action, there is a consequence, right? So for every action and no action, there is a consequence, right? So every action of, let's say no action, like I said, if you miss a train session and don't act on it, what's going to happen? You're still going to feel low, you're still going to increase your suffering. If you overeat and then self-soothe by eating more, do you go, well, I'm going to feel better about this, so keep going, there's a consequence. In both those cases, the consequences are never, in all these situations, supportive towards a goal at the end of the day. So self-soothing through guilt or a feeling of that somehow I'm lower is just digging that hole further and further, right? Sam and I have talked about increasing suffering a lot over the last, definitely over this lockdown for sure. This past one, this year, absolutely. Do I think it's still happening? Yes, because it's still a human behaviour. So to create, to keep, it's like that whirlwind, right? So like I said, it's a mush. It's a mush where it's kind of self-serving. Again, every action or no action, there is a consequence, right? Avoiding the consequences by increasing the suffering doesn't work. And what do I mean by that? So I will give you an example of where this will end, or where I've seen the same with clients. I'll use the same one with food because it's the easiest one to understand potentially and for people to associate with. I should say, I've said to myself, I overeat. I feel, oh gosh, I don't feel great. You know what? I feel really low. I feel really guilty. I just want to self-soothe now, so I'm going to have some more chocolate. I'm going to keep eating chocolate and maybe not train, so I might be a double whammy. What I'm not going to do is face the consequences and check my weight, or do something that counteracts that behaviour, or take an action that I know will actually almost force myself to stop because it will alleviate the guilt, give me some facts, stop the emotion, right, and cut through that. Because if you have followed me before, you know I talk about emotions and fears being purely based on having no facts, right, or no data, or avoiding a factual truth. It's about emotion, which is thought driven, not fact driven. So if I was in that situation myself as a client, which I have been, right, where I'm avoiding a consequence of my actions by not weighing myself or not taking responsibility for my actions, I'm increasing that suffering even more. It extends the period of suffering. So not only am I making the situation and creating that emotion of guilt further, I'm digging myself a further hole, I'm increasing the suffering that I'm feeling, and then I'm extending it because I'm not facing consequences of my actions or lack of actions. And Bali's saying, yeah, small habits can spiral out of control, which is why you have me. Yes, you do. As accountability to you works for me. Weekly weigh-ins do stop me. Yes. Can't avoid me. No. Now, not everybody has me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Everyone. There's a lot of me to go around, right? I get around, right? The thing is that often, here's the thing, Bali, and for everybody watching, listening, I can't frog march somebody onto, or have I? I have previously, and of course I have, when I could physically get within 2 meters of people. Yes, I can't physically force somebody into taking responsibility for weighing themselves or taking the action to decide to face it. I've had plenty of clients, plenty of clients over the last 12 months who will not weigh themselves for long periods of time, despite any intervention or accountability from their coach, or from myself, or from Sam, Heather, Sarah, etc. Even Bal, I'm sure, has got in there at some point, right? There's been long periods of time when people haven't done that because they're still not ready to face the consequences. And I'm only using this as an example because I think we can think of all types of scenarios where we know that if we took responsibility or accountability for the suffering we're creating, it would come to a halt or would be slowed in some way. And the challenge is that often when you are in this situation, or we are in this situation, we feel this way, it's almost like we want to stay in that suffering. Like we want to increase the suffering because it means we don't have to face the facts. We don't have to face what we're doing. We want to delay and stay in it and make it worse and make it worse, because if we do, we don't ever have to face it. Now, that sounds extreme, and yet that is the reality of how some people approach lockdown when it comes to their health and it comes to their weight. Actually, in not taking the action change to either start training or either to look at their food and take responsibility for it and delay that, in some cases, until the next time the gym's open, that little brief spots where I can go and do things. There's a delayed tactic in terms of dealing with consequences and an embracing of suffering, which sounds also quite dramatic and to some degree tragic if you look at it in a dramatic point of view. And yet that is exactly what happens. You'll often find that you are kept exactly where you are in the same emotional state because you're not changing the direction of the mush, right? That's such a technical term. But what I mean by that is that, and I've always said this, that action resolves lots of things, but one of the major things it does do is action resolves suffering. Like the sooner you face the consequences of what is happening in terms of your choices, if you're choosing to keep increasing this, the sooner you can actually resolve it and deal with it and put a plan into place and do something. The thing is, it's often easier, as I said, to delay the action because it means delaying facing the consequences. Now let's put this into a different context where an action might be conscious or unconscious, and by I mean it's a choice of the client or maybe handed to them. And you also, again, if you're watching, listen to this, you may also associate with this. What we have seen, or I've definitely seen, I'll see this personally of me, is that consequence of someone's actions may well be they're going back into the office and realise that their clothes do not fit anymore. Right? They've been willing to avoid the suffering because they've been in casual clothing, elasticated, whatever we call it, non-active wear as it's called now. So they've been in non-active wear for 9 to 10 months, and now they have to go into the office, and suddenly the consequence is handed to them, right? Where they have no choice to face it. So the consequence is handed to them, and they realise now they have to make a choice. They either act in one way, which is going by a larger clothing size, which is pretty challenging from an emotional point of view for anybody, or they have to face that they have to do something to change the tide of their behaviours so they feel better about going back into work and wearing the clothes again. That is a very very common that we've seen. If it's not, it's not work clothes, by the way, it would be the pair of jeans you've put off, the actual proper pair of jeans and not jeggings that you've been putting on for a while, because that will also be a consequence. When any clothes don't fit, that's a consequence to face, right? And yet those are ones that are kind of like can be in your control or kind of not. So if I want to really give a consequence to a client and help them understand where they've been staying in the suffering, and be like, do you know what, why are we waiting? You've got to go into the office next month, put the clothes on now. You want to go out in the summer, you want to go on holiday somewhere in the UK, great, put the clothes on now, face the consequence now. Like that's a way of doing it. If you really want to start changing, you don't know where to stop, or stop your behaviours now, where to start. Put yourself in that situation to face the consequences. Weighing yourself is one, clothes is another. Measurements, whatever you want to do, photos, right? They can work one way or another. It can really show you where you're at, right? That's the thing. Increasing suffering will only keep you where you are, right? So, covered a lot on this. It's a bit of I did touch a little bit on self-soothing, but this is the thing. Self-soothing incorporates into this because it's like you increasing the suffering, but in the nicest possible way you can do it yourself. With all the things you really love to binge on, right? Or enjoy doing that you know doesn't necessarily support yourself. So let's recap. What are we doing when we are increasing suffering? We're taking a bad situation and we are making it a hell of a lot worse, right? What are we doing to do that? We are usually self-soothing with something that we know is not great for our health, either physically, mentally, digestively, however you say it, right? It's not great for health overall. What that might look like, I feel you will be suffering tomorrow, Bally. That sounded really harsh if you didn't see the message. She's working out tomorrow. She's good. I'm not so quite threatening. You'll have a great time and great fun working out tomorrow, Bally, and you'll feel the effect the day after. That's how I meant to put it. So what do we do? We might feel guilty about overeating. How do we make that worse? Well, we self-soothe by eating more, going, well, we've done it now, and keep going because then soon I'll feel better about this, but I'm just increasing my guilt and going into a vicious cycle. Increase guilt, increase suffering, right? That's the result. You miss a training session, you don't do the rest of the week, right? You take a situation that's bad, you feel bad about, you make it worse. You dig the hole further, because what there's a failure to understand is with every action or no action, that it's always a consequence. Say that properly. There's always a consequence of taking action or not. The best thing is always to act, because otherwise you're avoiding the consequences, right? You're avoiding weighing in, you're avoiding checking your clothing, you're avoiding seeing yourself in photos even. I've seen that a lot this year as well, people not having as many photos. Can't gauge where you are until you act, right? Action always resolves suffering, one way or another. Because look at this another way. Maybe it's not as bad as you think. That's happened a lot as well. Maybe it's actually okay. It's just your behaviours have maybe been off for a while in terms of food and training to give you the perception that surely it must be terrible. The consequences must be absolutely abysmal if I've not weighed myself for ages or tried my clothes on. Oh, it's not. Too bad. There's things I can do at this point. Good thing I check now, right? That's happened so many times in the last 6 months. So many times, I can't even count how many times it's happened with clients where they've said, actually, do you know what, Helen? It's not as bad as I thought. I'm quite surprised. I'm like, yes, good. Now let's do a plan, right? Because it takes away the fear of the unknown, because it gives someone the reassurance that actually it's not the worst case scenario. So I can stop self-soothing the belief that it's terrible and I've done really badly and surely it must be awful. It gives someone a place to start with. It gives facts, right? We're talking about facts and fears. It gives facts to the fears. So it removes the emotion. It gives you pure fact of what you can do. And that's why you've got to act on it and stop the cycle as it is. There you go. Suffering done. That's a statement, isn't it, on a Friday? Right, I do need to sort this out because it's not done. The hair's not correct. Although I did promise it would have it done. I am done in time. It is done. My hair is done. I feel like a new person. I'm probably a pound lighter because all the hair is gone, which is always good. Yay! I'll weigh in tomorrow. So join me again. I said it's going to be Wednesdays and Fridays for next week. So Wednesday and Friday next week. Join me. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's a surprise, right? Join me and find out. Until then, it's bank holiday. In case anybody didn't know, bank holiday. Woo! So enjoy your long weekend, whatever you've got planned. And I will see you Wednesday. Bye.